Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, June 9th. If you would, at this time, please rise for invocation. And Mr. Harding, we add you on speaker, I believe, so appreciate you taking care of this for us tonight. Floor is yours.
Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening, Lord. We just lift up this board. Lord, we lift up each member, all the men and women who are diligently leading this county. Lord, we ask that you guide them, lead them, and protect them and their families. Give them peace, give them comfort throughout the rest of this virus that's going on, Lord. Just help them to make decisions that will better our county. And we thank you for all of these many blessings. For it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. Join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Okay. Before we get into the agenda, staff has a recommendation to delete the executive session.
And Mr. Chairman, staff recommends that we amend the agenda by deleting the executive session. The person that we were going to meet with is going to come to the second meeting for this month. So.
Okay. So you have a recommendation from staff. Is there a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, just show of hands. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is a public hearing. Okay. So while you do that, I'll read what this is. So it's a public hearing, special exception for Jeff Yearwood, Concord, Georgia, has requested an AR special exemption for a recreational facility, which is a 50-foot tall observation platform on 2.85 acres, more or less, located on Spoil Bluff Road. So at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to open the public hearing. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the public hearing being open? Unanimous? Okay. So the public hearing is open. So with that, I understand we had some input that came in after the fact, not after the fact, but after the due date.
Yeah, Chairman Allen, and I'll defer to the clerk, but it's my understanding that we did not get any input by the deadline for Friday. And subsequently, we got several letters via email over the weekend, and then a few this week. The total of which I'm not exactly sure, but none of them actually made it for the deadline to be able to be read during the public hearing.
All right. Okay. And it was all properly posted, Mr. Courier?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Met all the deadlines? All
In the newspaper, on ground. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So with that, though, we have one gentleman that's here that would like to speak. Is that what I understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Board entertain that? Y'all okay with that? Okay, sir. If you would just stand up, state your name.
Thank you.
Address your comments to the chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
May I share the letter just for the record also?
Sure.
I have one, you don't.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Jones. And Ms. Jones, I appreciate your help in particular and the rest of county staff with trying to get information on this and also getting comment in. My name is Gordon Rogers. I'm the river keeper for the Flint, and I work for that organization, Flint River Keeper. We are just under 700 families, farms, and businesses spread from the northern part of the river down to the Florida line, and just under 3,000 individuals. One of our core values is focused on private property rights, and there's a very special place in our thoughts about private property rights, and that includes the private property rights of this applicant. private property rights are at the core of what we do in terms of improving flow in the river and also defending the river and the creeks against pollution. We never venture into any of what we do without partnering with private property owners. It's at the very basis of what we do. And so I approach this comment with great respect for private property rights and also for the process that y'all have to go through to balance public interest and private property rights. There are a lot of people in our organization that don't understand that, and that on something like this, they just flat out object to a tower being built in such an iconic place. And as y'all know, the view from that ridge line and the view of that ridge line is iconic within the culture of the Flint watershed. And so that brings us to special light. I'm not an attorney, and I assume there's a county attorney listening or involved in this in some way, but it may not even be legal to deny this variance because of the way it was processed and what they're asking for. It all appears to be in order to us. So I can't stand here and recommend that you deny the variance because I would be disingenuous if I did that, because I don't see anything as a layman illegal about the request. And your variance process is quite clear. And again, I thank county staff for pointing me to the code on that. Our attorneys have looked at it and they've not objected to any of the language I've used here in the letter. But what you have done what the county staff has done to suggest limiting this variance to private use only and no commercial use, that is wholly appropriate and appears to be in line with your code and is a very strong suggestion from county staff, and we recommend that you uphold that. And I would go one more step and say that you have a lot of latitude within the variance procedure about what to grant and what sorts of restrictions to put on it. And we think it's reasonable to limit the height of that tower, not to some arbitrary 50 foot or 55 foot or whatever they're asking for, but in order to protect the public interest, to limit the height of that tower to where the deck is even with the tallest tree that's in front of it on the downslope side. In other words, the private property owner would certainly be able to see out over the top of that tree, but that when you're looking back at that tower from the river or from the mountains on the other side of the river, you're basically not going to see the tower. And we think that something like that would be reasonable. And we strongly suggest that y'all discuss and consider that. And with that said, I'm sure y'all know the treasure that the Flint River is. Y'all made quite an investment out there at Squirrel Bluff. And it has really improved the situation out there. And I don't think anybody, maybe some people do, but I don't think very many people want to see that area become some bustling commercial attraction with businesses crammed right up next to that property line. And so that's what our membership is concerned about, along with that view shed. And I think that's what's reflected in the other letters that came in, albeit late. And with that, I'll sit down unless there's any questions, and I really appreciate y'all's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. There are no other comments, correct?
Correct.
So, all right, so that's all the comments. The chair will entertain a motion to exit the public hearing phase.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. Moving on. Mr. Carter.
Yes, sir. Let me first clarify, this is a special exception. It's not a variance. This is most definitely a special exception. The request from Mr. Yearwood is for a recreation facility. When he approached me on the phone, talked about what he planned and where this might fit into the requirements in the AR zoning, it certainly, although it's a broad category, we determined that this was a recreation use and would fit in that very broad category. And he stated that it would be a 50-foot observation platform. So the exact term in the special exception list is recreation facilities, and that's what we as staff and I guess the Planning Commission, who recommended approval, do consider this to be a recreation facility and fits within that description of the AR special exception list. In terms of location, it's not obvious when you drive down Spruce Bluff Road, so it's equidistant where Hasley Shoals Road turns off and the trading post, sort of dead center. You can see, and this is in the staff report, a photo of the entrance gate, and that's sort of a giveaway to where this property is, because it's currently enveloped, as most of the property in that area is. The zoning in the area is AR. The only commercial use you have, and I would to some degree call it, is the pine plantation. To the east, there are acres and acres and acres of pine plantation. So in terms of impact in this area, it'd be interesting the day that that's cut down and used for what it's intended for, pine plantation. You have general review standards required by state law as well as your own ordinances, and so we review special exceptions by those criteria. Public facilities, certainly when we thought that this potentially could be used for commercial use, we asked questions about public facilities because it's not going to be publicly used. There's no water, no sewer, no septic, and the emergency services would be the same irrespective. And of course, there's basically the transportation network is Spruce Bluff Road in and Spruce Bluff Road out. We did receive some additional information that was not in the application during the Planning Commission's public hearing, and that was that there are approximately 10 family members that might access this facility at any one time. And of course, they would bring family guests. At this time, there are no plans to make this a business. And he did point out that about 30 years ago, there was a radio tower there that had been taken down. So there is precedent for something similar to this in the past, although it probably was not as attractive as we may see. Again, we do not have a design, we do not have a site plan, so we don't know exactly where it's going to go yet, and we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. This is the staff analysis of the criteria that we have for special exceptions. Recreation uses are listed, therefore I certainly don't think it's contrary to your ordinance, as long as you agree that this would be considered to be a recreational use of some type. Detrimental to the adjacent properties. Again, this is fairly innocuous. Any land use that anybody might think of, if it's misused, neglected, can become a nuisance, can be detrimental to the neighbors. If it's well maintained, if it's not misused, then it's an asset, or at worst, de minimis, and nobody really knows it's there. Again, we don't think that there'll be many uses at all. The design will tell us whether it'll be visible from a lot of the area or not much of the area. We just don't know at this time. And we are unaware of any other requirements of this. I was asked by somebody if this is high enough for aviation, and it's not, so that's nothing that we would have to worry about. Therefore, staff does recommend approval. The reasons for that are the minimal impacts that we believe that this tower would have. We're not quite sure what the public interest would be in denying it. And we certainly do believe that any future commercial use of the facility can be adequately controlled. Right now it's controlled by being prohibited. He's agreed to, and we recommend a condition through the Planning Commission that no commercial use go on there. And we'll see those conditions here as recommended by the Planning Commission. At their May 11th meeting, they did consider the same application and recommended approval unanimously with the following conditions. One, that this be a personal, non-commercial use, that certainly building permits be obtained, that state licensed contractors will be used, and that an address be obtained for this. This is basically regular process, but we made sure that was a condition of approval. We are concerned about security, in that when the family is not there with their guests, that we don't want easy access to anybody who knows it's there and could jump a fence, and all of a sudden it becomes a detriment, and we have problems out there even when the family's not involved. And then we state that a significant change would be if they decide to go commercial, and you see the language. They would have to come back through the special exception process, another application through the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners. This is the long-range area, a little higher up. You can see you do have pine plantation to the east. And this, you see this lot does not front the river, it's actually one lot off. There's the close-up. So you can see, we can speculate, where the tower would be. There's, considerable open area here. So unless they plan on clearing trees, and we've not been told that, we can speculate that would be the location until we get an application with a site plan. We don't know. Mr. Yearwood may be able to provide some additional information on that. This was the graphic he presented. As you can see, this is his writing, something similar to this, professionally designed and constructed. So this is at least in the direction of what he anticipates he would put up there. Again, this is the entrance to the property off of Squirrel Bluff Road. This is looking to the north and to the south towards the road. And that concludes the staff presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So you have staff's recommendation. Is there a motion on this this request? I guess if we got any questions.
Can I ask Doug something before we go forward?
Sure.
Would you propose that you have an engineered plan?
That would be understood and required, yes.
That's it.
So is there a motion on this? And then once we have a motion, then we can ask Mr. Yearwood some questions if we have any specific questions regarding this. So the chair will entertain a motion on this.
Mr. Chairman, I offer motion that we approve this request.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second for the sake of having a conversation about it. To approve.
Okay. So I have a motion made, second.
Now, is the public
So-
hearing closed or open? Mr. Yearwood?
Yeah, we closed the public hearing, yes.
Okay.
So, but now we're having some discussion, so Mr. Yearwood's on the phone, so we can ask him some stuff. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Yearwood? Mr. Yearwood, I got one for you. So, comments made earlier about the number or the actual height of this thing. Is the 50-foot something you're dead set on doing, or is that just an estimate?
Well, good evening. Thank you for considering my application. Yes,
Good evening.
Mr. Yearwood. 50 foot was my estimate by looking at trees that are around there. There's pine trees everywhere, and then there's a few hardwoods on this particular piece of property. And then, so I did a rough estimate of the height of the trees, and 50 feet was the treetop. So I guess if we got somebody with, what do you call those things, a high lift type truck, we could do it exactly. But I did a rough calculation, and that's how I came up with the 50 feet. That gets me to the treetop, so I can look over the trees and see down into the river.
Okay. I guess would you be okay with limiting the height to the base of the, I believe what I heard, the base of the platform to be at the canopy height of the trees around it? Would that be okay with you?
It would be okay as long as if I mismeasured and it really needed to be 60 feet, it would be okay if I went higher, just because it would also be okay if I went lower. I understand that the river keeper wants to limit the height so it's not as prominent, but I'm just thinking in my mind,
Because right now, it sounds like you're just eyeballing 50 feet, and like you said, you might get into this, and, once somebody goes out there and properly measures this and does the plan work, the tree canopy may be at 60 feet, so your observation tower is not going to be high enough. But if it's 40 feet, then 40 feet might be the proper height. It'd save you money and it would keep you at that canopy level too. So that was one of the issues I had. So is there any other questions?
Well, I have to make some more requests for Doug, because that was what I was going to do with my motion, but, I don't think it needs to be said again, but I will say it, I'm all for property lines. But this is a special exception, and in order to grant special exception according to our rules, I gotta have some information. It's gonna kind of look this way, it's gonna kind of look that way. If we're gonna grant something, I need to know what I'm approving here. I don't want to just say, well, yeah, go out and build 60 foot, 80 foot, 20 foot, whatever, make it happen. We don't issue building permits until we do a plan review. So we look at what the person applying for that permit. We're about to do a special exception here, and I'm not against this. I'm just saying we don't have any information here. Is it going to be metal? Is it going to be wood? And I know we can put all these stipulations, but wouldn't it be better if this plan was put together and presented to us in a way that we knew what we were approving? Because right now we're going to make recommendations on how to do this, and we don't even really know other than it's going to be a 50-foot tower out there. Is it wood? Is it metal? Is it going to be stained? Is it going to match the stuff around it? Once again, I'm for all for Mr. Yearwood having his ability to do this. His property, he bought it. He had that right. Any one of us, when it was a sale, could have bought it many years ago. But I got an issue with approving something here, and I don't really know what I'm approving of. It's a 50-foot tower. And then I ride by and go, man, I approved that. We just ain't got enough information here.
See, to kind of summarize what you're saying, you feel better if you actually had a set of drawings and a site plan.
Right, and I think, and Mr. Yearwood's benefit, he needs to know, if we approve a 60-foot tower and he goes out there and he needs 68 foot, well, then he can't build his tower, and we went through this process, and then are we gonna go out and measure it to make sure that he can go up to 50 we granted it? I think we can create a situation here without proper information. It's not going to be good for us or Mr. Yearwood.
Any other discussion? Okay, well, so we can move forward with the vote, or based on what I'm hearing you say, you'd like to see site plan
right,
and design.
right. You can get a measuring tool, electronic measuring tool, being tool that can tell you within 5 seconds of popping out there, measuring tall strip property what height it is.
So would you?
I would like to rescind my motion to approve and make a motion that we table. Well, we have a second.
Well, we have a motion, but it needs a second. Without a second.
Well, technically, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, technically.
So,
But you're saying you want to rescind your second.
I make the motion so we can get the conversation started.
Okay.
Otherwise we would have never got to the discussion about what we do without the motion. So I made the motion so we can get a conversation started about what they actually want to have. And based on the discussion that we do need more information, and with that being said, I will like to rescind my motion to approve.
Jason, you got a comment?
I just wanted to check with either of our parliamentarians here to make sure that you don't need to vote it down and start over.
I feel if we can follow up with Heath, or he can answer the question, but I feel we probably should vote it down and then just go with another motion on the way you want to go with it.
So you're say not rescind the motions, take the vote, and then if there's other action, we go from there.
Heath, is that okay with you?
That's fine. I mean, I was thinking that in the alternative, you could vote to approve subject to approving site and design plans. But either way, you accomplish the same thing.
Okay, so,
I can still vote no, even though I don't make one still vote.
right, okay, so we're not rescinding the motions stand. Is there any more discussion? Hearing no discussion, Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
No.
Commissioner Jones?
No.
Commissioner Ellington?
No.
Commissioner Wilder?
No.
Chairman Allen?
No. But I understand that we have, so we voted to turn it down. Is there another motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion
Yes,
that,
sir.
we, actually have, some drawings,
Motion to table?
motion to table until we can have to get further information, which I will explain, or we can explain that, and put that in a motion.
Just a motion to table, pending some additional.
You want a motion to table the discussion because the public hearing is already
Right.
closed, so we don't want anybody to feel like the public hearing will.
Right, the public hearing part is over.
Right.
We can't make a motion, we just voted it down. Motion. Not voluntary, we can't make a motion. But we just voted it down.
Right.
So it's off the table.
So it's off the table. So for it to come back, thought the intent was, we
I was
wanted,
going on the advice of the voluntary.
right,
Well, and this is my very ancient parliamentary procedure from a long time ago, but someone on the prevailing side can move to reconsider. And you've all prevailed, so any of you can move to reconsider, and then that can get you to where it is you want to go. So if you want to go through the motion to
That's what we
reconsider.
were doing. I was just saying, make sure
Okay.
you're clear that the public hearing is closed and
Yes.
we're reconsidering the discussion of what you want.
okay. You heard what our parliamentarians suggested. Is there a motion to reconsider from someone?
I offer motion that we reconsider.
Is there a second? I'll second. And does that require a vote?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. So, Mr. Curry, you will get with Mr. Yearwood and discuss the information that we feel like we need, accurate height, better description of what the material and construction, color and all that would be. Okay?
Very good.
Mr. Yearwood, is that, Mr. Curry will get with you.
If you'll indulge me just one more time, and I appreciate you letting me speak. So, I listened to the discussion, and I appreciate the discussion. But now I'm left with a whole lot of questions. So, because what's about to happen is, I'm going to get with my architect, and the architect is going to ask me, okay, so they said that they wanted you to submit plans before they'll approve it. Well, what is it that they'll approve? So
Okay.
I don't know what to give you that will convince you to approve it,
Okay.
because I don't know what y'all are interested in seeing other than a height and a material.
Right. I think
So I'm
that's,
worried that I'm going to spend a couple $1,000s with an architect, turn in some drawings to Doug, who'll give them to you, and you'll say, no, I don't think I like that.
well,
It needs to be this way, this way, this way, this way. I don't know how I'm going to please
Right.
the whole board here.
Right.
So
I
can
think-
you all give me some guidance?
Yes, sir.
Or point me to guidance that would be approvable?
Yes, sir. We will get with Mr. Courier and we will make sure that all of our individual concerns are vetted through him and he will get with you so that, we obviously do not want you to incur any unnecessary cost. So we will get with Mr. Courier and he will follow very soon.
Perfect, I appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing for REZ 2020-03, Danielle McCray, Eric Richards, 140 Apple Circle. At this point, Chair will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. We have comments.
Yes, you have one comment, Reggie Smith. And it reads, I feel that the commissioner should approve this request, and my reasons are a person should be able to maintain and upgrade their property as needed to meet their needs. This being in commercial zoning, but not all buildings are being used for commercial use. I assume this home was to be bought and turned into a business such as a hair salon or an antique shop or any other business, this expansion would be approved, and the homeowner deserves the same right. Thank you, Reggie Smith, Smith Transmission.
Okay. Is that all comments?
Yes.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, Mr. Curry.
Yes, sir. This is a summary of the staff report that you were submitted earlier. Ms. McCray and Eric Richards have requested approval of rezoning of 140 Eccles Circle, approximately a half acre, a little over, from C2 to R4. This is for the purposes of eliminating the legal non-conforming use status, which would then allow them to construct an additional room, potentially also a bathroom and a closet to go with that expansion. The R4 zoning district does permit site-built single-family homes, and C2, which is the current zoning, does not permit single-family residential development. Therefore, this property currently is a legal non-conforming use, or the street term is grandfathered in. Because of the situation, we go into a lot of discussion in the staff report about what a legal non-conforming use is. Basically, when something is contrary to the zoning, you don't just shut it down. You don't say, that's it, you're gone. No, you're allowed to continue to use it, even though it doesn't meet the zone, within certain restrictions. And one of those restrictions is that you can't improve the footprint, you can't make it bigger, and you can't go higher. You can do anything on the inside to improve it, plumbing, curtains, whatever it is, but you can't improve or increase the footprint or raise the roof to any degree. You may certainly do repairs. So therefore, with the zoning C2, those things may not be done. Those additions may not be done. You'll see in the surrounding uses, most of the area is zone C2, with the exception of the currently the DOT property, the old airport, which actually has an industrial zoning of M1. These are the descriptions of the C2 and the R4 zoning, and what you would typically expect to have and what you're trying to create in those zoning districts. And as with all cases, you have review standards for rezonings by which each one of these requests must be evaluated. In staff analysis, again, because this is a rezoning, we look at what the intent of the zoning that is on the property now. You will recall, just a few months ago in March, we had a question very similar to this. There was a garage proposed by special exception, and the question was asked, is it your intention that this area should go commercial, which is what the zoning has, and what this special exception would allow by putting that garage in, or do you deny that somewhere else because we want to preserve the neighborhood? You made a decision at that time, no, commercial is the way we're going to go in this area. You granted the special exception, that garage exists now and is in business. The proposed zoning is R4, and if that zoning were permitted, the principal use could be a single-family residential use. It would be one of the two R4 zonings in the area. The other one was done in 3 years after zoning. Zoning went in 1995. In 1998, there was a rezoning case where they went from the C2 to R4 to allow whether it was a pre-existing duplex or it was converted, I don't know, but there is precedent for the R4 back in 1998. So then we do the analysis of the uses. Again, because of the zoning in the area, an R4 would be a spot zoning. It would be unique to the neighborhood other than one other parcel, and certainly not consistent with recent decisions. If the rezoning is approved, are there going to be major negative effects on the adjacent properties? No. Is there going to be major economic impact, positive or negative? No. Generally speaking, are there going to be negative impacts to insurance rates, health and safety, welfare, things like that? No, not going to be a major change on the impacts of utilities. The major issue is it's not consistent with the zoning and basically the planning for this area that we've had since 1995 and with recent decisions. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the requested rezoning for these 3 reasons. One, that this area is planned by the zoning ordinance anyway, your zoning map, for commercial purposes. There is one example of a spot zoning, and that was the one I just talked about, that other R4. And again, I talked about the precedent and continued reinforcement of this area for commercial use in your decision in 2019 with the mechanics garage. The Planning Commission also recommended denial. It was a 4-1 vote. Their reasons for the denial were the length of time the property has been commercial, maintaining the consistency of the zoning and land use in that area, and they considered this to be a bad spot zoning precedent that could certainly lead to other spot zoning considerations that might be worse than this one. We'll now go into the graphics. This is the aerial. The tax assessor's website now has 2020 areas, so these are relatively up to date. In the blue, you will see the property in question. You see some of these, the residential uses in the area, DOT area, the old airport, US 19, and then the commercial uses that are here. And I would point out that a number of these have been single-family residential before, including where the Dollar General went. Okay, this is the zoning in the area. So this is what the major issue here is. You see you've got C2 in the M1 dominant. Here's that 1998 rezoning, the R4 there. Here's their property, but you see everything else is zone C2. Now, this is a graphic. What is the existing land use? This is something that, okay, what is it actually being used for right now? So the actual commercial uses you can see up here, Virginia Well's pipe storage is over here. I'm not sure if this is single family. This was a windshield survey. I drove through quickly one afternoon. There's a large billboard in that property. There's a single family structure. I couldn't tell, is it being used as a business or single family, so that's sort of a question mark. This is a single family structure that has been, it's empty and vacant now, has been used for commercial before. And this is a site where you've got a lot of the improvement for the equipment is being stored, soil, everything else for the road improvements of 19. And then there's First Choice here. And then you've got all of this area, the new auto repair, the Dollar General up here. So there certainly is, at least on the periphery, this commercial use. This is the home in question. And then when you look to the west, there is the fence and the DOT former airport property. This is looking to the east, down Eccles Circle. You can see the notice sign on the right. And this is the garage that was approved at the end of last year. These are the residences across the street and the next door neighbor. That concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Heard the staff report, is there a motion on this request?
Yes, sir, I'd like to make a motion, with all due respect to the planning commission that's done a tremendous job, because I sit on the planning commission for several years. With all due respect to them, I would like to make a motion to change this to R4. And the reason being is kind of, running along the same line that James Ellington did a minute ago. A man has a right to do whatever he wants to his property. If it had been a commercial piece of property, they wanted to run a commercial business, they could add on to it. But because it's zoned C2, even though it's a residential property, they can't do anything to their house except minor repairs. So my motion is to approve.
Motion is to approve the rezoning request. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Watson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Courier.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next on the agenda are public comments. My understanding is we have done, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. The only thing on our consent are the regular meeting minutes from May 26th. Is there a motion on the consent?
So moved.
Is there a second? Let's get all those in favor, show of hands. It's unanimous. All right, new business, moving along. Item B is a presentation by McGriff Insurance on the county's property and liability and workers' compensation insurance. Mr. Tinsley.
Chairman Allen, if I may add a little context to tonight, we had originally hoped to have both of these presentations at your work session for this month, but because of the timeliness of when we received the data, we weren't able to make that deadline, but I thought it prudent to go ahead and let both of the folks that are submitting go ahead and make their presentations, but I would remind the board, and I think I've spoken to each of you individually about it, there's certainly no pressing need to make a decision on this tonight, but I wanted to give our association and our broker the opportunity to go ahead and make those presentations. Staff hasn't had a whole lot of time to do an analysis on each of the proposals, so we do need a little bit more time, so I would recommend bringing this item back for a decision on your next agenda. But if it would please the board, I think it would be appropriate for both our broker and our association to make their presentations in advance for that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Boatright, appreciate you being here tonight.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for letting me be here. We appreciate the county and the relationship that has been there for many, many years. What I'm going to do tonight is kind of a view from 1,000 feet, and if there are questions between now and the next meeting, and you want me to go into more detail, we will do that, and that's per my conversation with Jason. Basically what I've done is giving you a comparison of what our renewal looks like this year compared to last year. I know each one of you has a copy of this. We are basically 5% up from where our program was last year. All of this is still with Travelers. They have done a tremendous job, in my opinion, on the renewal, based on the fact that they are in the middle of paying a tremendous fire loss, which each one of you are familiar with. It's going to end up being probably $750,000. So they have done an outstanding job keeping the price in line, understanding that there was really no way to avoid the fire. And they've done a tremendous job on the claim, working with Jason and myself and the other people involved. I've also attached a little overview of what the claims look like, premiums look like over the last 5 years. Just to give you a little history as to where we've been, where the claims have come from, and kind of why we are where we are from a premium standpoint this year.
Travelers has been our carrier. This would be going on the 4th year, and they have done a really good job for us. So I won't really go into detail on that, other than to say, if you look at the loss ratios over the last 5 years, the insurance carrier is yet to make a profit on the county. And for Travelers to step up and do the job they've done with the renewal based on our circumstances, I was really happy with that. Just to give you a little light on what we do, McGriff is the 5th largest broker in the country, and we have access to a tremendous amount of markets. So what we did was go to the marketplace. I knew basically where Travelers was going to be a month and a half ago. There are many, many markets to write this, but based on the large claim this year, this was a tough year to go ask somebody else to step in and take over with that kind of claims going on. So, but again, we do have a lot of options in the marketplace. I gave you a little information on who the staff is that Jessica and Jason and the other team, work with on a day in and day out basis. I want to toot Jason's horn a little bit with regards to how he helped when the fire loss came to information and helping get that process along. I also want to toot McGriff's horn a little bit. Mike Parsa, who is the in-house claims consultant, did a phenomenal job, kind of playing the middleman between Travelers and the county. And so, just wanted to kind of let you guys know that as well. So, to give you an idea of where the premium increase, the majority of it is on the workers' compensation. Okay, our experience mod in the expiring term was a 1.27, and our experience mod for the new term is a 1.50. Okay, so basically what that means is we were kind of getting charged 27% more than a 1, and now we're going up to 50% more, or it's about 18% change in the experience mod. The experience mod is generated based on claims and premiums. Okay, we had a couple tough years in 18 and 19, and so that's kind of where we're, the experience mod is changing. We've had a very good year this year on the workers' compensation, and hopefully that'll continue. So, again, we appreciate the business. It means a lot to us. We try to take really good care of you guys, and I would love to answer any questions. Jason, if there's any other information you want me to share, I'd be glad to do it.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to add that I was not familiar with McGriff or their services or Scott as a broker until I came to work here. And I think it's only fair that I say that the level of service that we get from them, greatly exceeds what my expectations were for a policy like that. So I didn't want Scott to leave and not hear that from the staff. His staff is great to work with, especially that gentleman that worked as our claims consultant at McGriff when we suffered that loss at our fleet maintenance facility. I feel confident that we would have been very disappointed with the claim if we didn't have that gentleman and Scott really working Travelers to get us the result we need. So I don't want to make that.
Our experience mod, what is it currently?
What is it currently? In the current term,
Right.
it's 1.27. In the renewal term, it's 1.50.
And that's all passed.
Yeah, so basically the experience mod is 3 years, not counting the last 12 months. Okay, so that's how that works. And to give you a little bit of idea, an experience mod is a combination of frequency and severity. Okay, and so that's where that comes from. The other thing I will tell you, McGriff, you guys being a McGriff client, provides you Mike Parsa, who is a claims consultant, also McGriff Loss Control, and a lot of other things that McGriff has just from a service and a risk control and things to help you guys. So just wanted to kind of touch on that, and there's a little information in there about that as well.
Do you also provide a service where you would come out and my day job, I mean, with Federated comes out to us and they'll, anytime, they'll come in and inspect the buildings and say, well, you really need to do this can cause a problem.
Absolutely, and that's actually twofold. Okay, Nick Reynolds is the loss control consultant with McGriff, who would help us and is at your disposal. And we also have Travelers, and most of the carriers that would have the business would also do that on the property side. Okay, it depends on if you're looking for something, if you're having an issue on the work comp side with a certain type of loss, whether it's the road department or electric, whatever it is, then that's kind of somebody else. So it really depends on what the issue is as to who would get involved, but McGriff has internal people that don't cost you anything that are there to help. Just like Mike Parsa, what happened, just to clue you guys in a little bit, when the loss happened, we sent the loss notice to Travelers, and I sent the loss notice to Mike, okay? Because what his job is to be the middleman between the insurance company and the client, okay? Because you guys don't have time to make sure you're being treated like you're supposed to, and I don't have time to do that. But that's my job, and he understands how it's supposed to go, and I'll give kudos to Travelers as well. Their adjuster did a great job, but having Mike there probably made it go smoother than it would have.
Any other questions for Mr. Boatright? Or Jason? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Tonight.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jason. Bye-bye.
Okay, next on the agenda is a presentation by ACCG. Jason.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, obviously, I believe this is the second time in recent years that our association has made a proposal on this. I believe the last time was roughly 3 years ago. I will say when we were in receipt of this proposal, at first glance, it's extremely competitive. And I do have really a great deal of experience working with Joe Dan and his team at the association. Of course, all of it's been pretty positive. But I would just caution you to understand that it is a different type of product, and I'm sure Joe Dan's going to go into that in a fair amount of detail as to why it's different than a standard policy that we've had with McGriff. I mean, for one, it acts more like a co-op and more like a pool, but I'll let Joe Dan cover that. So just as Joe Dan is going through his presentation, just keep in mind it's really not necessarily an apples to apples comparison. There are definitely some financial comparisons we can make that are pretty easy to make, but there's some nuances attached to it as well. So
Right.
with that, I would turn it back.
Since you haven't had a chance to really dive into it, Joe Dan, if you could just give us about a 30,000-foot view of your proposal, I appreciate it.
Sure, be happy to. Can you guys hear me okay?
Absolutely.
All right. In a perfect world, I would be presenting in person, but I'm under some travel restrictions. I don't speak for the time being, but I do appreciate the opportunity to present our proposal tonight. First, I'll start with the property and liability proposal. The PCCG, Interlocal Risk Management Agency, also known as ACCG IRMA, started way back in 1987 with 14 counties. Currently, we have 115 counties in the program and 56 authority for 171 total members. As Jason mentioned, it's a little bit different. It is a member-owned, self-insured pool made up of Georgia counties and authorities. It is governed by a 7-member board of trustees from participating counties in the program. It is a nonprofit program. You do not pay any agent commissions. And one of the things that sets us apart from the commercial market is the fact that we can return a dividend to our membership. And we do that in the form of a premium credit. So we started returning dividends to our members back in 1997, and to date we've returned $38.1 million. Now, in full disclosure, it does take about 8 to 10 years before a member becomes eligible for a dividend. And is eligible, should they leave the program and come back in, they would get that dividend. There are multiple advantages of being in the ACCD IRMA program. I like to call them that. We'll touch on a couple of them tonight. We have administrative and brokerage services through Marsh. Marsh is one of the world's risk insurance services firm. They are the administrator of the program. They do the underwriting, if you will. They do the pricing. They set the rate. And I will tell you that as of July the 1st, ACCG will take this in-house. Those individuals who work for us, for Marsh, will now become ACCG employees on track 1, and so we don't anticipate any issues with that. Another value-added benefit is loss control purposes. Through local government risk management services, LGRMS specializes in loss control and safety services. They do on-site and regional training. The county will be assigned a dedicated field representative that will work with the county to set up a safety action plan so that you can work towards the safety discount. And if you're able to meet all the requirements of the discount, the county could save up to 5% off the premium. Just some of the training that LGRMS provides. They do defensive driving for your employees. We have 3 driving simulators to help your law enforcement and first responders. We also provide de-escalation training for your sheriff's deputies, in addition to harassment training. And keep in mind, all of these services are provided at no additional cost to the county. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. APCG has their own claims administration team. We have highly experienced claims professionals who handle the claim for the pool. They've settled over 150,000 Georgia County government claims. They are all ACCG employees, and they are based here in Georgia. Another benefit is we provide a human resources legal service. I'm not sure if the county has a designated human resources director, but we've got a helpline available to the county in the event you need any assistance in regard to FMLA, ADA, any type of employment discrimination. It also is available for if the county needs to take disciplinary action or terminate an employee. And basically what it does is before you make any decision, you have access to one of ACCG's employment attorneys to go over the situation at hand, and then they'll make sure that you're following your county policy with regard to any action that you take, all in hopes of avoiding a wrongful termination type claim. We also provide cyber e-risk hub access. This is a free access to help the county prevent network, site, and privacy losses. And just wrapping those up, just a couple more. We also provide property appraisals every 5 years for all your county buildings valued at $100,000 or more. So if both elect to join the program before the end of the year, we would come out, write appraisals on all your buildings valued at $100,000 or more, and then we present that to you via email or notebook, or however you guys would like to have. So that's done every 5 years. One of the newer coverages that we provide is crisis management coverage. If you've seen the news in Minneapolis lately, with the law enforcement issue there, closer to home, the issue going on in Glenn County, ACCG provides up to $100,000 per event per year for situations where a crisis occurs. It also covers any incident regarding workplace violence, and there's also some counseling that is available to employees that witness a workplace violent event. Just to touch briefly on the insurance coverages, I think are very similar to what you currently have with Traveler. We didn't have a single policy for all lines of coverage. And just to highlight some of the third-party liability coverages, this would cover your general liability, your law enforcement liability, automobile liability, and public official liability. You have $1 million liability limit per occurrence. There is no cap. You do have $1,000 deductible for each line of coverage. Law enforcement liability and public officials have a $10,000 deductible. And I believe that matches with what you have currently with Travelers. I will say that there is a $3 million aggregate cap on public officials' liability.
Hey, Joe Dan, we're down about the 10,000 foot level. Can we get back up to the 30,000 foot level?
Okay.
And all these numbers sound great, but I mean, we're gonna lose them 5 minutes from now. So,
Okay, give me just, okay, we also provide property coverage, crime coverage, and cyber liability. Don't know if you had that currently with Travelers, but the annual premium for all those coverages is $222,807. We are on a July 1 renewal, and so it's been prorated to $205,715. Now, I know the county's currently on a July 29th renewal, but you would have to move to a 7/1 renewal with ACCG. And it is a 2-year commitment going when you join.
okay, so we're at a point where we basically just need to take this down and get with Jason and get down to a good apples to apples. If you could just give us a, and Jay, I'm directing this at Jason, a good side-by-side comparison. Because, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things on both sides that are comparable, and I'm sure there's some things that aren't. And if we could just kind of have a good executive summary, and obviously the bottom line, is that sound? I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of stuff's going over my head right now. Not just over my head, it's just a lot of numbers, and as we stated, this is basically just a presentation as far as types of coverage and kind of highlight the company.
Okay.
So Chairman Al, what staff has been able to determine since we received the information late last week is that, roughly speaking, without getting into too many details, the ACCG proposal is roughly $25,000 to $30,000 less on an annualized basis than what was presented by McGrath. So now there's some caveats to that. Joe Dan mentioned the change in renewal date, so obviously they're wanting to renew us for a shorter period and then get us on their cycle, and I'll explain that to you in a later meeting. But if you just want to boil it down to brass tacks, it's between $25,000 and $30,000 less than the proposal that we got from McGrath. And Joe Dan covered the highlights that I wanted him to cover. Obviously, their coverage is specifically catered to county government, so they provide a lot of what, especially the stuff that I feel is like their strong suit. They deal a lot with law enforcement, and they concentrate very heavily on law enforcement and public works claims, which You know, so it might be some of the advantages to that policy versus the policy we have.
So you gotta turn this around pretty quick.
So I'll have it ready for your next meeting, and you'll see a side-by-side comparison, and I'll show you where it's apples to apples, and I'll show you where it's not. You'll be able to see it, but it's gonna take us, we'll have it ready for your next meeting.
Dan, does that save you some time?
Yes, sir, I just wanted to make sure you were, trying to give as much information as I could, and,
Oh, you were. You're giving us a lot of information. Okay.
when is that next meeting?
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today.
Okay, I will plan to be at that meeting, okay?
Thank you. We
To
appreciate
answer
it.
any questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jason. Okay, next on the agenda is discussion and approval of Phase 2 resurfacing project.
Chairman Allen, you and the rest of the board members were in receipt of a revised spreadsheet and map that came from EMC as late as yesterday. I actually made the call at your request because I know that you had given them some specific instructions for additional information. I didn't quite know what it was because I missed that second part of the work session when I was watching it all live. But what I sent out via email is what EMC was expecting was going to answer your question. So that, and I have a printed copy of the list, and it should reflect a total construction cost of $5.522 million. So if there's any questions or your concerns, what we're basically asking the board at this time is just to approve the list as was revised by our engineer so that we can go ahead and have them start working on the design and we can get the bid package out.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I got a question.
Sure.
I was looking at, New Harmony Church Road, it was recommended that it be omitted from this Phase 2. Am I correct?
Yeah, I remember seeing that in the email.
Yeah.
New Harmony Church, but I don't see it.
It's number 149 on the left-hand side.
It says recommended omitting
Okay.
in the notes.
Oh, it's in white, that's why I'm having trouble reading it.
Yeah, they recommended omitting Welcome Grove Church, Kendall Drive, New Harmony Church Road, and Cottown Road.
To be honest with you, I don't remember any of those roads being on the last road this discussed. New Harmony Church, but it does
I
not
remember
remember.
Cottown was on that one you presented.
That, the Cottown was on there. The Cottown was on there because we were talking about West Morse Crossing, and it potentially made sense to tie it.
While they were there, it would tie it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on that, New Harmony Church Road, I just know that I was on my way up here this meeting tonight, and it's, at 1.1 mile, and it's horrible.
Listen, you know why they recommended taking it off? Was it a call, trying to get the cost down to?
So 200.
Let's see, so they have, now since I missed that conversation, I didn't have any notes on the conversation, so the engineers were working from James's notes and from Alex's notes. It looks like they added a column, existing surface, and then the column that y'all wanted to see was the proposed surface.
Right.
But then, if you look at the New Harmony Church, it says at the end, that even in the notes, it says recommend omitting.
Yeah, that's the only cost on the.
Jeff Davis was repair only. My only question to the board, Mr. Chairman, is was there discussion on East Morse Crossing ending at Ben Hill Road? Because I noticed they don't have any data on that. But that was not, the board didn't ask for them to be included.
What was the total cost of the New Harmony Church Road there?
85,000.
Yeah, I guess it'd be good to know why, some of these were omitted, because even if we added back in, we're under that 6 million range.
Yes.
Like,
They're
Current
probably,
surface treatment, recommended going surface treatment.
Yeah.
they talk about doing like a proposal, but then some what if. You remember, like, you would do, y'all would approve the list as a proposal. Once we kind of got a bid of what, then we would say, okay, well, what if we did this and how much would this be additional? Y'all remember that conversation?
Yeah, I think so. Do y'all remember that ring a bell with y'all? That we talked about going forward and then having some wiggle room before we put it out for bid. If we had the funds available to do these.
And the short answer is yes, you do have funds available still. So I was under the EMC was that they felt like their direction was to provide exactly what Jessica mentioned, so that they could get started on doing the design on all of this. So there's certainly nothing precluding us from adding stuff to the list.
So is that okay with y'all, that we just move forward with the recommendation as is, with the understanding that we may add these to this as we go? Because a lot of these are surface treatments, and Jason and I talked about it yesterday, and that when this goes to bid, that it gets bid as you have an asphalt project and you have a surface treatment project. So if you get companies that specialize in surface treatment, it may be more beneficial for us to do it that way than to try to lump this in as one paving project and then having a big asphalt company perhaps subbing out some of this surface treatment and then maybe getting some, adding some add-ons to it on top, So,
Mr. Chairman, I did clarify that with the engineers, your specific question about whether it would be 2 bids or 1 combined bid. Now, their intent was to do it in a single bid, but I've now tasked them to do some analysis as to whether or not it would be beneficial to split them out. And I think I shared with you, Mr. Chairman, that in my experience, when we work with surface treatment in other communities, we always did it in a separate item. And in some cases, we had an ongoing multi-year. So it was just a per unit price. And then the board would come up with a list, and then we would apply that to an existing contract. That's another way. And I explained that to Chris, and he said, that sounded like a pretty unique solution as well.
So for tonight, so that we can get moving with getting this project out to bid, you just need us to approve the list as presented.
That's correct. So they can start the engineering.
Then we're going to come back and figure out how it's going to be bid out.
and one, on EMC's email, they asked, and I don't know if we need to put this in the approval, but to earmark, some portion of funds for the restriping, potentially allocating our savings from the last phase 1 to put into phase 2. And I think it was between 100 and 150 is what he suggested that we potentially earmark for restriping.
Is that reflected on that list?
It's not on the list,
No,
but
it's
it's part of the email.
But they did, and they talked about that in the last meeting at the work session.
Yeah. He asked us to maybe take action on that, I think.
Okay, something you could go to.
Y'all,
But this is virtually 41 miles and change, and this would get them started on engineering. And once they get out there and start doing the evaluations, they may come back with recommendations for changes to it based on their actual evaluation.
we just need to approve this to get the work started.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's under an existing task order, so originally we had the task order on the agenda, but this is under the existing task order, so I just wanted to make sure that this jived with your work session, which I wasn't able to attend.
So is there a motion to approve the list as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the list as presented.
Second. Any further discussion? I'll just say that I'm excited. It's 40 more miles of roads, on top of the 30 miles, just hair over 30 miles. That's 70 miles of roads in basically less than 2 years. We just got to make it happen. So as soon as they can get back to us with some bids, we can get moving on. And I know there's tons of different paving options when it comes to surface treatment. So
Yes.
we'll get lots of discussion? Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, that's pretty much it. Comments, County Manager?
Mr. Chairman, I submitted mine in writing for the sake of timeliness tonight.
Thank you. Mr. English, you have anything for us tonight?
I don't, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I appreciate everybody watching. That's it.
Mr. Watson?
No comments.
Mr. Wilder?
No comment.
Mr. Ellis?
No comment.
Oh, well, I got one more comment, can I back up?
All right, sure.
Polls are closed,
16
and,
minutes ago.
yep, and so we'll see what happens.
At least in this county they are.
Okay. And I think it was a pretty substantial turnout, given the 3 ways to vote. I want to give kudos, and Jason and Jessica, you can pass this along since you're on that board, to the election board staff. I mean, this was a unique challenge for them, for y'all. They stepped it up.
They crushed
And all the volunteers between the COVID stuff and the absentee ballots. And I think there's some cases already in Georgia where some counties weren't as fortunate as we were when it came to having a good handle on this. So please pass that along. And there being no other further comments, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Thank y'all.
Aaron, man, you got it fast enough.